This segment is the mogul, Delegate Michael Hornby, House Caucus Chair. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, John and John.
Good morning, Mike.
So going forward, this is a Thursday, and we were going forward with you on Tuesdays. What day are you going to be going forward?
Well, just right now, it's like my days are filled from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., but I think 8:30s on Thursdays might be a good day.
8:30 on Thursday, so because I had you on Tuesdays for the rest of the session. That's what you'd initially said. So.
Yeah, I have judiciary starting at 9 every morning. We're hearing testimony from child abuse and neglect cases. So it was. I'd hate to miss some of that stuff
Sure.
as we move forward. So
that's more important than we are.
Yes, sir.
Your initial impression, I saw the camera picked you and Kresha up sitting side by side a couple times while I was watching the governor's speech, so you got some screen time there. What did you think of the speech?
I thought it was pretty positive. I mean, it's pretty much what I expected. I think the governor's getting better and better as a speaker. He's come a long way in the 15 years since I've known him. I think he paints a pretty good picture, and there were some things I was very excited to hear about.
What in particular did you like?
I liked the when he started talking about the education. I thought that was very good. I almost thought he was going to mention locality pay when he started talking about wages. I really thought he was going to say it, but I thought, geez. I think the one thing that probably did not go over in the room, just because it was more split 50-50, was the talk on CON. Mm-hmm. But I think he's making a major push to do that. And what that looks like at the end, we'll see.
Mike, this is Doyle. Yeah. Do you have a position on CON?
I'm kind of conflicted. For me, I understand where this is. I think the questions that I want answered are, is there another state that has repealed CON with the payer percentage that we have? If you look at it, PEIA, Medicare, and Medicaid make up for 75% of the people that are actually going to hospitals or medical services. I think that number is way higher than a lot of other states, and I would be for skinny bites of the apple. I'm not on health, so I'm going to let all that testimony happen. I'm going to lean heavily on height and Gino, who I room with, so I can get those testimonies. I don't, unfortunately, I have other meetings during health. So if it gets to the floor, I'll have an opinion, John, but I don't know what that piece of legislation looks like. I am firmly against hospice, repeal of hospice, that's for sure. I think there needs to be some guardrails put in if we're trying to do a full repeal, and there has to be something put in there to protect our rural hospitals as well as the hospitals in the EP.
Steve Roberts. We had Steve Roberts on earlier this morning, the president of the West Virginia Chamber, Mike, and he brought up a point I'd not heard anybody else bring up until this morning, nor one that I had considered. And Steve's point was that if West Virginia goes full repeal on certificate of need, and the border states like Maryland and Virginia keep theirs in place, then it puts our healthcare providers at a disadvantage because they can't go across the border and set up shop in those states to make up for the market share they're going to lose by allowing those providers to come into West Virginia and take a piece of the pie here. What are your thoughts on that?
That's an extremely well taken point, and those are the questions I'd be asking if I was in health. As I said, I haven't seen it. I'm going to look forward to all the testimony from all the players. I think the biggest thing for me is that payer mix. No other state has a payer mix like we do.
The reimbursement rate?
No, the payer mix. The amount of people that are using PEIA, Medicare, and Medicaid is about 75%.
Oh, I see your point.
Of the patients in West Virginia. That is significant. I think it's almost double what any other state that has repealed this in the past, which is extremely significant. Those PEIA, Medicare, and Medicaid they're not profitable. They pay less than what it costs the hospital, the medical provider. I think that's an important point.
Speaking of Medicaid, Mr. Gilstrap had a question on that earlier in regards to the projected $150-something million deficit in Medicaid spending. We went through that a bit earlier. Mike, do you regard that as a legit figure as part of the $400 million projected budget deficit?
Again, I sat through finance a lot last year. I'm not on health or finance, so I haven't really focused on that for this session.
All right, let's go to education then, because I know you're focused on that.
Yes.
Right. We just had on the president or executive director, I suppose, Jim Brown of the West Virginia Association of School Boards. We talked about something that's been discussed, which is the merging of counties in regards to boards of education, administrations, as a way of consolidating, saving some money, and maybe getting better representation for some areas. He didn't seem very enthusiastic about that being something that would happen in all likelihood. Is there still discussion on that?
There is definitely discussion on it, and I know there are other delegates that are talking about it, especially down in the southern part of the state. We heard of a school with 28 students, K through 12. School has 28 students, but they've got staff as many staff as students. That's not viable. They still have a district board of education. That's going to be a difficult conversation. I certainly do not support merging Berkeley and Jefferson or Berkeley and Morgan. I think our folks are very different, and we have a lot bigger school system representing a lot more students. But it is being discussed. We will hear testimony from both sides on the issue. Obviously, we haven't seen any legislation as this is day one. We're basically just in committees talking about the first things that we're talking about. So very, very little to give you as far as news. But yes, there's definitely discussions on that. There's discussions on broadening school choice. The education discipline bill that Amy Grady wrote in the Senate last year. We have a House version that we are pushing out as fast as we can. And I have a bill that I'll be submitting next week that I think is going to be big news back in Berkeley County as well as across the state. Might not be what everybody wants, but I believe it's Amendment 4, and we're just going to, it's without a referendum, we're just going to run it and let the Supreme Court decide.
And what does the amendment say? What was for? Oversight of the school board?
Amendment 4, remember, was putting the Department of Education under the oversight of the legislature.
Mm-hmm.
The REC decision back in whenever it was said that Department of Education wasn't. Our Constitution doesn't say that we don't have it. I think if we went all the way to the Supreme Court, we would get the right decision back, and it overturned the right decision.
Yeah, actually, Mike, that gets confused a lot. It wasn't the REC decision that did that. That was a decision prior to the REC decision that said that the Constitution's provision that for thorough and efficient means that the legislature may not exercise oversight, the same kind of oversight that it exercises over every other department and agency of state government. But you're right, and I agree with you there. I think the legislature should have oversight over all of the agencies of the executive branch.
And that's my point. Is I think we need to treat the Department of Education the exact same as every other agency. We're not saying we want to run it. We just want the oversight to be able to ask the questions. And when we ask the questions, we get answers and we get decisions like we do in the other agencies.
Yeah. It's back to consolidation again, if I could. There's a difference between school consolidation and administrative consolidation. And a lot of times people confuse the two. If you talk about consolidating the school boards of, say, 2 or 3 small counties that border each other, that doesn't necessarily mean any schools have to be consolidated. That would be a decision made by this newly constituted multi-county school board.
But the argument against, and again, I haven't seen it, the discussions are starting. I certainly see the savings aspect, but then a county feels like they're underrepresented. So how do you keep one administration with, let's say, 3 elected boards of education on the track? Because one county may be a little bigger or maybe have. So there's a lot of details that have to go into that, John. And we're just not ready. I haven't seen anything.
I think if you did it, you would have to have a consolidated school board elected by the people of the combined school districts.
And that's where it becomes very, very sticky, because not all counties are the same, and even counties that are next to each other and are small in population, there's still large discrepancies between what we consider small and what they consider small.
Good morning, Mike. Earlier,
Good morning, John.
We had Mike Pushkin on the air, and he was talking about we got our $400 million shortfall, and we have our $1 billion surplus, and from one administration to the next. We have now Senator Justice saying that he left the state in really great shape, and we have new Governor Morrissey saying that we're running in this $400 million deficit. And Mike had said that somebody has to be lying, that both things cannot be true at the same time. So I thought I'd give you an opportunity to explain how that doesn't have to be the case.
Yes. So we actually had this discussion with the governor, and obviously the governor has put in a balanced budget. So while I understand what the governor's saying, when you look forward 1, 2, 3 years, that based on the current way that we're basing our budget on 2% growth, if he does not cut spending, we could have a deficit. I understand what he said. We just have a disagreement on the word deficit, because right now we have excess money for this year. When we look at next year, the budget he has proposed is a balanced budget. The budget that we will pass will be a balanced budget. How we get there and how we look forward, we're looking at it a little differently. He's now going back to that 6-year plan. It's a way to, in my opinion, and this is just me looking from the outside in and what I see, it's a way to cut some spending without and moving. I think it's a mistake moving some of those things to the front of the budget. For instance, public defenders, if you move that in the front of the budget, it will just grow exponentially by itself every single year, because no matter how much money we give them, they will always ask for more, which is why we've had it in the back of the budget to ensure they don't spend so much money up front.
Were we overly exuberant in passing the that final income tax cut?
No. I don't see why we can't do even more cuts.
Bold.
I absolutely do not think that was a bad thing, and I would vote for more. I think we went through, and this is just my opinion, I don't speak for leadership and I don't speak for the legislature, but let's be honest. We have $1.3 billion in our rainy day fund, which will grow with interest to $1.4, $1.5 billion. We have $400 million sitting in a income tax savings account that is also interest bearing. That will be $450 million by the end of the year. We have another we've got about $2.1 billion sitting back. We just came through COVID, which was the rainy day. Now, I understand we got federal funds for that, but that was the ultimate rainy day that could happen for our state. Without a major economic downfall in the next 2 to 4 years, I believe with President Trump's leadership, we're going to see an increase in that economic activity, especially in energy, especially maybe if the governor gets some of these things that he's talking about going, I think we'll see an increased revenue. So I don't see why we can't cut taxes again. I'd be happy to vote for it.
So as we get additional businesses growing, how do we overcome the issues with our workforce participation rates? There's so many conflicting issues that are going on that seem that, and all a hopeful moment like like additional industry gets counteracted by, well, nobody's going to go to work there.
Well, I mean, you have to also realize our labor participation rate is probably the worst in the United States. We do have an aging population. We need to get young people back. We need to get manufacturing back. We need to get people working. Is that going to be fixed by a speech by Patrick Morrissey? No. But I think his vision moving forward has something like that. And I think as a legislature, we can just make it easier for people to get jobs. We can make it easier for people to live in West Virginia. That's our role, to make West Virginians have a better life. But we have to look at this as a positive, and the committees will work on what they think. But if anybody thinks that we as the legislature are going to fix morality or whether people want to go to work, that's not really how it works. We can just give you the avenues to make that work.
Mike, this is Doyle again.
Yes, sir.
I refer to myself as a liberal with green eye shades on. I'm going to put my green eye shades on now. Of the things that you mentioned, other than the improvement in the economy, all those particular items you mentioned are one time. And I look very askance at trying to fix an
one-time, John?
The rainy day fund. If you took all the rainy day fund, that is one-time money. Once you take it, it's gone.
No, I don't want to take any of it.
No, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to take any of it. I'm just saying we are in good financial shape. My point is we have that money sitting there. I'm not saying use it at all.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I was afraid that you were.
I'm saying we have this. We are in good shape. We are growing. We are, for the first time, we saw a report where we're actually getting people. We're in a plus situation with our population, especially amongst 45 to 65-year-olds, which I think is great. We're not quite there on the 20 to 30-year-olds, but I'm not saying use it. I'm just saying we are really not in bad financial shape.
Well, but if we have more that is due than we have to pay, if we don't cut into those reserve funds, I do think that we need to be very careful about that. And incidentally, Mr. Gilstrap, I must say, I did not hear Mike Pushkin saying that somebody had to be lying. I think he said somebody was clearly wrong. Or did he use the word lying?
He may have.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, he may have.
Yeah,
but it doesn't matter.
I don't think anybody's lying. I think neither one is wrong. You're looking at it from different angles, and the governor can make up his revenue as he sees fit.
Oh, we learned that.
As a legislator, we can't do that. We have to go by his revenue, and then we can set the spending based on that. I think you can cut government by making efficiencies, and that's what Patrick was making the point. I'm certainly not saying dip into or dip into any of those reserves, but we can make this work, and I think we're so early into the situation. I haven't even seen what Patrick's proposed yet.
Mike, what are these Japanese business opportunities that Morrissey was referring to last night?
Well, I think the numbers are 172 million a year is what Japan already has invested in every single year in West Virginia. You look at the Toyota, the plant, just what they're doing already. I think we've got don't quote me on this, but I think it's Mitsubishi out at the Pierpont airport that's doing engines, and they do crazy stuff over there. So they already are doing business here. We welcome them in. Maybe they're looking to expand. Sure, I'd love another Toyota plant in West Virginia. So we already have a good relationship, and we just hope it expands more.
Yeah, there's the Nikkei spark plug plant down there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the rest of your day like, Michael?
We'll be running back into judiciary. Then I've got a meeting with leadership. Then we'll do House or a session. We're passing two bills on the floor, and then I'll be going into education.
All right, I'm going to talk to you again next Thursday at 8:35.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Sorry I wasn't too helpful with too much of the details.
Oh,
It's early.
It's early.
you were more than helpful as far as you know.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good day.
You too.